Hi, Rex at RW Mods. So we got a little treat for you today. I got these engines in to do a rebuild on, and I was like intrigued by them because it was these things look pretty old, and I contacted the guy about what year he bought them and a little information, and he bought this OS in 1993, and he bought this. It's a Ron Paris Pico in 1994. So this thing's like 26 years old, and he wanted them. He wanted to run them again, but they had been sitting for like 20 years, I think, or I can't quite remember, but they've been sitting a long time. So I got them kind of mocked up here. I don't have the screws in them or anything here. So like I said, these are pretty old, and it's more of a rebuild slash restoration project. So a pretty small head on this Pico. It's a if you don't know who Ron Paris is, he was just a nitro engine genius from way back. And if you look at that carb, look at that carb there. It's quite a huge carb. Head looks a little small. It does look like it would run hot, but we'll slide the OS aside here for right now, and look at this Paris Pico. Now the head looks like kind of a cast iron or cast aluminum head. 6 head bolts. I don't even have the piston sleeve in there. I'm actually waiting on bearings for both of these, so that's why I kind of just got them mocked up here. I don't have the head button all cleaned up. I'm not 100% done with them, but I was enough done that I thought I should uh, do a video. So let's take the rest of it apart here. Yeah, if you don't know who Ron Paris is, look him up. He's quite a genius with these and nitro engines back in the day. And if you were winning either off-road races, I don't remember if he did much on-road stuff, but he was a nitro engine genius. I remember when I first got into tuning nitro that I watched or I read the tuning guide that he had. Now these engines were pretty rusty. They had been sitting 20 years. So like I said, it was kind of a restoration project. So I had to mask everything off and kind of bead blast the crank weights. There was quite a bit of rust on everything. Um, you can see this crank's got kind of a cut there. I don't know exactly what Ron Paris did. If he did the modifying on them. Sounds like we got a storm coming in. Hopefully the audio is pretty good. Maybe I'll speak a little louder so we can hear it. So the crank, it's a 13 millimeter crank. They use a 13, kind of an odd bearing. That's why I'm waiting on bearings. Um, this one's you can see his engraving in there. Ron Paris team, or no, comp. So, and this was made by Pico. I don't know how old Pico is, but it looks like a hard coat on this backplate, which for that long ago looks pretty good. The piston and sleeve, a little bit of damage on this piston, but even back then, Pico's sealed down a little ways from the top of the piston. Looks like a really beefy rod. Sleeve doesn't really look a whole lot different than today's engines. There's a little bit of grinding work there on the boost port. Looks like a little bit hand modified by Ron Paris. I don't really know that much about him, but then the block, kind of interesting. Like I said, got to get the bearings for it. Been waiting for over 2 weeks on it. Carburetor looks to be kind of, you don't have a removable venturi, so um, this it must not be keyed. So you must uh, your linkage. So most of the newer carbs you can't spin like that, but so and then it's kind of interesting. This piece comes off. You got kind of a spray bar needle. It must be your idle adjustment screw there. High speed looks like you can actually just turn that with your fingers or a screwdriver. Interesting looking carburetor, but this was a pretty trick carburetor in the day. So all this thing's a it's a neat engine. Hope it runs good for him. I think it's more of a you know he used to run them 20 years ago, and now he's wanting to run them. So hopefully we'll get the bearings soon for these and get them back to him. But yeah, I wish I knew a little bit more about Ron Paris. I know he's a genius with these nitro engines back in the day, but I should look up a little bit more on him. So one thing I forgot to mention on this Paris Pico was uh, the owner sent me some photos of the letter that came with this engine, and when you bought a Ron Paris engine, he sent you a tuning guide, and I can't remember all of what's in there, but I'll put it on the video here, and so you can kind of see what all is included. And it was, I remember reading something about, if you're at the track, we go to most of the big races. If you want to ask for advice or say hi or whatever, and and it was quite a personal, quite a personal letter. Um, One thing I wish he would have said what he paid for these, but I bet back in the day, nitro engines used to be expensive. So I don't know how much they cost new, but it was kind of neat, and hopefully I'll like these letters too. So we'll go into this OS now. The OS doesn't look quite as much of a race engine. It looks a little more stock than the Paris Pico. Like I said, I'm not 100% done with these, but got the cranks cleaned up, and and got some. Now that you'll notice, first thing with this head has the head button built in, which a lot of the cheaper engines used to be back in the day. Standard plug. Block, you can see that's a bolt-on exhaust. The OS Max RX. And these things were in pretty uh, rusty, rough shape. Like I said, I masked off the crank on this one also, bead blasted all the rust off, except for a crank pin, and I had that masked off and stuff. They had a little different crank uh, where they bolted the crank on, or the clutch on, sorry. Like I said, this one has a little less work done as far as really no modifying to it at all. Backplate doesn't look a whole lot different than what you'd see nowadays. Carburetor looks a little more standard than the Pico one. The 20B carburetor. So, and the piston and sleeve, pretty basic ports on this one. As you'll notice, the color's a little different, and this looks to be a nickel-plated sleeve, which like even today you can buy the VG, the OS VG. They tend to lose their pinch a little faster. It's not. You just have to have them resized more often. It just um, can cause some tuning issues and stuff over time if you run them a lot. So piston, Yeah, like this one had a little damage to it. We gave her a good pinch, and hopefully it should run decent for the guy. Um, Strong looking rod. They didn't used to knife edge the rods back then. It's a big bypass. See how that lines up. Uh, yeah, a big bypass hole there in the piston. Back in the day, if you got your engine to last for the 30 or 45 minute or even hour main, the worlds probably were an hour back then. You were doing well if you got your engine to last the whole main. So just thought it'd be interesting to kind of look at these old, you know, pretty old engines. Like I said, I got some bearings on the way. It's been over 2 weeks. They've kind of been lost, so um, they're an odd size. I think at 13 by 24. So it's kind of an odd size. You can see even back then OS um, did kind of their radius, like the full radius. They've kind of stuck with a few things throughout the years. I didn't do any timing numbers on these or anything. I'm sure they're probably not. You can look at that crank window. It's probably not real big. So they even OS even still had the hole. Um, that the oil hole um, goes through the crank, so you got a hole drilled there to oil the piston pin. I don't think it was a good design. I'd just soon just soon have the hole in the rod, but OS kind of stuck with that for quite a while. So I thought you might be interested in looking at this old engines, and I thought they were pretty neat myself. I did offer to to buy them from the guy, or give him if he just wanted to run something. I didn't know if he had some sentimental value to them, but I'll give him trade. I have no idea what they're worth, but this I would think this Ron Paris Picco might be worth something. I don't know if $100 or $800. I have no idea, but um, the Ron Paris engine I'd like to have as a shelf queen for myself, but some engines that he used to run, so he wants to get them running again. So hopefully you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Good night.